back and bite the fruit and ruin everything. Even in that moment, God says, someone will come. Someone will come who will set everything right. There's the prophecy right then at the very beginning. In the very beginning, God begins his rescue plan. God begins his rescue plan. God had promised this would happen. Oh, but it's so easy in the difficult moments, right? To focus on the problem and forget about God's promises. That's our natural tendency, right? When the ambulance is coming, it's hard to think about God's promises when you're waiting for the ambulance. When your employer lets you go, we naturally start thinking about what am I going to do when the bills pile up, when the relationship falls apart, when things get difficult. In those moments where we're overwhelmed and we ask what went wrong, it is so easy to forget God's promises. And still, the Bible is full of amazing promises that God gives us. What's fascinating is I was looking through different promises that God gives. And a lot of them have the same characteristic. Many of the promises God gives are exactly for those moments when life is turned upside down and you wonder what happened. I looked at Isaiah 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Deuteronomy 31, verse 8. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Jesus himself said in John chapter 16, verse 33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus also said in Matthew 11, verse 28, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Those were just a few of the promises. The list of promises went page after page. Oh, but sometimes it is so hard to believe God's promises when life is hard, when the evidence in front of us seems the opposite, when panic sets in, right? It's easy to have doubts. Having doubts just seems to come naturally. Having doubts, that's what the women had when they first came to the tomb. I'm sure they thought something was wrong. I'm sure their first thought was not, oh, well, Jesus rose like he said he would. If that was their first thought, Jesus wouldn't have had to have sent angels. They weren't the only one to have doubts in the Easter story. I try and picture what it would have been like, the scene. I love the next part, reading through it. You just imagine the women, one moment, so upset that the tomb is emptied. Then the angels appear and they're terrified. Next moment, as the angels tell them the good news, they are overwhelmed with joy. They're overwhelmed, right? It's this emotional roller coaster. But now that they know the truth, now that they know the good news, the great news, they've got to tell someone. They've got to tell the disciples. The disciples need to know. And I can just picture them quickly going. I'm sure they didn't walk slowly and stop at the store on the way, right? They're making a beeline. They're making a beeline to tell the disciples the good news. They need to let them know. And so I'm sure they burst into the room. And you can imagine what it would be like. Everybody talking at once. The disciples wondering what's happened. I'm sure the first response was, well, what's gone wrong now? Right? But the disciples the women are excited and they are just eager to tell them. And I'm sure they're like, calm down, one at a time. You know what it's like when everyone has good news and they want to be the one to share it. Verse 9. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Well, that's frustrating. You ever had where you try and tell someone good news and something wonderful and they're not listening? I mean, today they're probably on their phone, right? You're trying to talk to them and they won't put their phone down. Or you try and tell them everything's going to be okay and they're not listening. They're arguing with you. Here they are with amazing news, the greatest news ever in the world, and the disciples sit there and respond with, yeah, I don't think so, right? You'd want to slap them, right? It'd be so frustrating. The women bring this good news, the disciples don't believe them, and these are the disciples. For 3 years they've walked with Jesus. For 3 years they have watched him raise people from the dead, cure the sick, calm the storm, feed thousands with a single lunch, right? They have seen these miracles, and now they doubt. I find that encouraging. I actually find that encouraging. We go and we share the good news with people, and you don't always get a positive response when you tell people about Jesus, right? And a lot of people tell you that what you're saying is nonsense. That can be discouraging. But this passage reminds me of a couple of different important things. It reminds me, first off, that the good news is true, whether the person believes it or not. It's true. And secondly, if I tell someone and they think it's nonsense, that does not mean it's the end of the story. There is still hope. We know further on in the gospel that the disciples come to believe, and many, many, many others come to believe. And so this passage gives me hope. It reminds me not to give up in the good news, not to give up telling people, not to give up praying for those around us that we love. All right, little recap. Women go to the tomb. Jesus has risen. They tell the disciples don't believe. But Peter goes and checks it out. Verse 12. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away wondering to himself what had happened. I love that Peter hears the good news. And after what has happened with Peter, where he had betrayed Jesus, where he had denied Jesus, Peter's not willing. He doesn't believe the women, but he's not willing to risk being wrong again. And so he gets up and he runs to seek the truth. He gets running to seek the truth. He gets there and he checks. When life gets messy, it's not surprising we have doubts. It's not surprising we can doubt God's promises. The women initially doubted, the disciples doubted, Peter doubted. And we're going to have moments of doubt too. We have those moments when we think of God's promises, but life goes turned upside down, and we think to ourselves, is God really going to care for me? Does God really love me? Is God going to help me through this valley? Is God going to get me through this what just happened moment? Don't let those doubts fester. Seek the truth. And when you share the good news and people respond with questions and doubts, don't be discouraged by that either. Tell them to seek the truth. God is not afraid of doubts. God is not afraid of questions. He doesn't want us to sit in our doubts, but to seek the truth. Jesus isn't afraid of a quest for the truth. After all, Jesus said in John 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. When life is turned upside down, seek the truth and look to Jesus. Easter reminds us that our hope is in Jesus, that we look to him. Jesus is victorious. He is risen. He has defeated evil, defeated death, and in him we have full life. When life is good, seek him. When life is hard, look to him. When you're stuck asking what just happened, look to Jesus. After all, he said, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He also said, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Easter is good news, great news, amazing news. We find comfort at the cross of Jesus. We find strength at the cross of Jesus. We find hope at the cross of Jesus. We find incredible love at the cross of Jesus, the place where mercy reigns and never dies, the place where streams of grace flow deep and wide, the place where sin and shame are powerless. At the cross, we find forgiveness, and our heart has peace with God. At the cross, the love of God comes like a flood, comes flowing down. Please stand as we sing together.
There's a place where mercy reigns and never dies. There's a place where streams of grace flow deep and wide, where all the love I've ever found comes like a flood, comes flowing down. At the cross
following the service. We don't have a coffee time today, but that doesn't mean you need to run away. Please feel free to linger. Feel free to welcome each other, talk to each other, get to know each other. It's a great opportunity to spend some time hanging out. I don't have plans till supper, so there's no rush. I'm not going to push you out the door and lock it, so you've got time. Hang out. Easter reminds me of how great God's love is. It's amazing. It's amazing how great his love is for us. That he began his rescue plan so long ago. He knew that we had sinned, that the disease of sin was on ourselves, and that we couldn't cure ourselves. He knew that sin brought with it death. And he knew that he was the only one that could give us hope, the only one that could take our sins, the only one that could give us life with him, full life. Easter talks and shows and demonstrates in a fullness unlike anything else God's incredible love for us, his incredible love for you. This week, as you go throughout your week, remember his incredible love for you. Remember that God loves you more than you can imagine, more than you could possibly imagine. He loves you, and he longs to give you full life, walking in his steps, walking in the steps of Jesus, and helping others walk in the steps of Jesus. Go this week and be blessed.